Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be a video on triads, the basics of triads, and understanding chords a little bit better, and the components of chords as they relate to triads, inversions, playing them in different places around the neck, and just understanding them in a basic sense. I'd like to make some videos in the future about how you can navigate some more advanced concepts with triads, but I just wanted to make sure that we had some of the preliminary information available here on for you guys first before I get into that, because it can be a big thing to talk about. And so triads were always something that I didn't really know a whole lot about until I was deep into my guitar career, I guess. So, you know, when I first started playing, I would have learned open chords, and then eventually power chords, and then bar chords, and these kinds of things. And yeah, it was definitely much later before I started actually looking at little, you know, 3-note chords and triads and understanding where they came from, or like how they fit into the larger chords that I was playing, and how to see their inversions around the neck. So maybe some of you are in a similar position and need to know a little bit more about this, or hearing guitar players talk about triads and how they use them for soloing and these kinds of things too, and don't really know where to start. So hopefully we can get a little bit of background on that here today. So if this is G, a root note, we have a major third and a fifth. Those 3 notes constitute a triad, but even just the root and the third is essentially a triad. But we're going to be talking about them in regards to there being 3 notes. So the third can be either major, like it is here, or minor as well. So we'll talk about minor triads too. And so this concept, it's really good to know, because if we flip the triads around, so if we have the root note as the lowest note, then that's the root position triad. But if we have the third as the lowest note and go third, fifth, root, then we get first inversion triad. And then, or first inversion G major, rather. And then if we go with the fifth as the lowest note, fifth, root, third, then that's second inversion triad. So root position, first position or first inversion, and second inversion. So that's kind of what we want to know a little bit today, both major and minor. And then how we can manipulate those notes a little bit to turn them into different chords. If we can make sus chords, sus2, sus4 chords, or we can make a flat 5 chord, or major 7, dominant 7 chord. So you can really kind of see the pieces of chords a little bit better this way, and you can see how they fit into maybe the larger chords that you're playing around the neck as well. So yeah, so that's the first step, is just kind of working with some of these assortments of strings. I'm starting here on the D string, G string, B string at the 5th, 4th, and 3rd frets. And so this is just for G major. Obviously we can move all these around. And so this is just, to show you where the root position is. And then that next inversion, we move up to the 9th fret on the D string with the ring finger. And that gives us the major third. The G string at the 7th fret with the index finger is the 5th. B string at the 8th fret with the middle finger is the root note. And the notes that I'm playing are G, B, and D. So then here we have B, D, and G, or 3rd, 5th root. And then we move up to the 12th fret, and we're just barring the D, G, and B strings at the 12th fret. And that gives us 5th, root, 3rd, or D, G, and B. So we're just mixing those notes around, and that's why they're called inversions, because you're inverting them. So that would be a good first step, is just moving those around, just getting comfortable with those positions, understanding and seeing how those intervals are are flipped around. If you're not even understanding what I mean by the interval, like the root note is the 1. So in a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So there's 7 tones 7 notes, 7 tones inside of a diatonic major scale, and that's what we're counting when we find these numbers. So root, second, third, that's why we're at the third, fourth, fifth. You can find that same note over here. So that's what we're talking about. And so practicing the inversions, and so that's just on the D, G, and B strings. We can do these triads on any triple set of strings. So if I do this shape here, G string 4 with the middle finger, B string 3 with the index, high E string 3 with the index finger, just barring that like that. So this is a first inversion triad because this is the major third. That's the 5th on the B string, and the high E string is the root. So the lowest note that we're hearing is the 3rd, so that's first inversion. Then if I move up to G string 7, B string 8, high E string 7, then we have the second inversion triad. So this is the 5th interval, that's the root note, and that's the major third. So that little shape, that gives us it looks like a D chord. That gives us our second inversion. So first inversion, second inversion, and then the root position is actually up here. G string 12 with the ring finger, B string 12 with the pinky finger, high E string 10 with the index finger. So that is our root note, the lowest note. The major third is in the middle. The high E string is the 5th. That sounds a little out of tune. So that's your... So again, that'd be something to practice, just moving between those. You can arpeggiate them as well. Then going back to the D string. And then we can go the next, we can do A string, A, D, and G strings. So then this is the 5th, 5th, root, 3rd. Or like if we're just talking about the intervals, so that's why this is a second inversion. So, but this little position that I'm playing is the middle finger at the A string 5th fret, D string, ring finger at the 5th fret, index finger on the G string 4th fret. So that gives us our second inversion. And then next would be this root position, which is G string 10th fret with the pinky, D string 9th fret with the ring finger, G string 7th fret with the index finger. So that's giving us G, B, and D, root, 3rd, 5th. And then way up here we have 14 on the A string with the ring finger, D string 12, G string 12. That's giving us our first inversion because that's the major third. D string is the 5th. G string is the root. We can even play a first inversion down there too, the octave lower. And then we can do the last set of 3 strings, which is the low E, A, and D strings. So we have G, B, and D, that's the 3rd fret, 2nd fret, open on the D string. So that's root position. And then we have the first inversion, which is the low E string 7th fret with the ring finger, A string and D string at the 5th fret being barred by the index finger. That's our first inversion, root position, first inversion, and then this is second inversion. So low E string 10 with the middle finger, A string 10 with the ring finger, D string 9 with the index finger, D, G, B. So it's always those 3 notes just inverted. Right, so then we practice those. Going back down here. Down to the D, G, B string. And then the top 3 strings. So we can also play these triads as minor triads, right? So we can play just by flattening the third. So wherever the third is, this is where we start learning about these chords, the inner workings of these chords. That third, if it's flattened or lower by one semitone, all of these triads will become minor. Right, so that was the major triad. Take the G string note, which is the 4th fret with the middle finger, down one semitone, bar the G string and the B string with the index finger at the 3rd fret. You find the minor triad. And then we go to the D string. If we find that first inversion, major, we're starting, the lowest note is the major third, so that's the note that we're going to lower by a semitone. So then we have a minor triad like that. Just have to rearrange your fingers a little bit. Middle finger goes to the D string, 8th fret. Ring finger goes to the B string, 8th fret. Get that minor triad. And then if we look at the second inversion in the major, we were barring the 12th fret, D, G, and B strings, like that with one finger. So now we're going to have to do it a little differently. That B string is the major third, so we have D, which is the 5th, G string, which is the root, B string is the 3rd. That note needs to go down a semitone. So now it's a little tight in there, but D string 12 with the middle finger, G string 12 with the ring finger, B string 11 with the index finger gives us the minor triad. So practicing that, and then so for the top 3 strings, this was the major triad. G string is our 3rd. That's what needs to go down a semitone. So we just bar the top 3 strings with one finger, and that gives us the shape for the minor triad on those strings. And then if we go to the major triad next, this this is actually second inversion. So the high E string, that's our major third in this position. That needs to go down one semitone. So now it looks like that. So even just practicing those 2 shapes and seeing how they differ. Our root position triad is here. So G12, B12, E10. B string note at 12 is the major third. We have root, 3rd, 5th. So this note needs to go down a semitone. That gives us the minor triad. A, D, and G strings. That was the major shape. 5th, root, 3rd. 3rd's going to go down a semitone, or however you want to fret that. Next one, root position. Root, 3rd, 5th. 3rd has to go down a semitone. Like that. Here's first inversion. 3rd, 5th, root. Really cramped up here, but so that's the 3rd. That's going to go down a semitone to the 13th fret. And the low E string, A string, D string. So this was our major triad. Root, 3rd, 5th. Open D string is the 5th. This note needs to go down a semitone because that's the 3rd. So that's how we get the minor triad. Over here, this was first inversion, so that's the 3rd, that's the 5th, that's the root, 3rd has to go down a semitone. And then this was our major shape for the second inversion, so this is 5th, root, 3rd, that note needs to go down a semitone. So hopefully by now, you're beginning to understand how these work and what's changing in each of them. Obviously right now we're just moving the 3rd around to make it minor, understanding the difference between major and minor. The next thing we can talk about is just playing around with that shape. So if we just go back to the very first shape that we were talking about, this root position G major. So if we leave this root note there, if we leave the fifth there, and then the third, this is the note we're going to move around. That's what we were moving around already for major and minor. But if we put the pinky down on the G string, 5th fret, so now what do we have? So this was third, that was the flat third, so this was major, this was minor. So if we go up one semitone, now we have the 4th. So this is like a sus4, suspended, 4th triad. Is it really a triad? I don't really know if that's it's still 3 notes, but we've lost our major third. We have the root, we have the 4th, and we have the 5th. So maybe we don't think of it as a triad anymore, but we're coming from that familiar shape to see these other chord shapes that we can explore. So hopefully that's helpful too, just to see that, and that you want to experiment with that. So if we keep moving that G string note around, if we put it to the 2nd fret, we have to, it's a bit more complicated chord position. It might not be easy to play for everybody, but we see that. That's how we can get a sus2 chord. So that's how we get these sorts of sounds. Right, and then we can do that same idea if we move the B string note around. If we put it to the B string 5th fret, because this was the 5th, right? Root, 3rd, 5th. If we move that 5th up 2 semitones, it becomes the 6th. So now we have root, 3rd, 6th, 5th, flat 5, 5th, flat 6, 6. That's the 7, so that's the flat 7, so that's dominant now. This is the sound of a dominant chord. Up 1 more fret, now that's the natural 7, so it's like a G major 7. Dominant 7, 6, flat 6, just regular major, flat 5. So that's a cool thing to explore. So if your dexterity allows you to, and if you can see those chord shapes and you can manipulate your fingers a little bit, you can find these other types of chords as well. So that's really, really awesome to explore. And then if we move around the low note, that D string, the root note, if we move that down a semitone, if we're thinking still in the context of G major, then this shape becomes a major 7 shape, because we have so this is the natural 7, the 3rd, and the 5th. So those are key components of a G major 7 chord. So as long as the G is still thought of as the root note, then that's a major 7 shape. Dominant 7, because that's the flat 7 now. Natural 7, root, natural 7, flat 7, 3rd, 5th, dominant 7 chord G, dominant 7, or 6. So then when we move to first inversion, G major, if I want to move these notes around to create different types of chords, then I can, like we talked about, we can move the 3rd lower by a semitone to get the minor 3rd. If I moved it even 1 lower, we hear the sound of like a sus2, minor, major, sus4, just by moving that up 1 more semitone. So this is really good, even just good for your fingers, just to get used to. Some of these shapes are a bit more challenging, so it's good to explore. And then if we move the 5th here around, so this is 3rd, 5th, root, so if I move the 5th down, we get a flat 5, 5th, or the natural 5th, and then up a semitone, we get the sound of the flat 6, 6, dominant 7, major 7. Each of these sounds is really good to know. And then if we move the B string, this is the root note. If we move that around and move it lower by a semitone, we get the sound of a major 7 chord, dominant 7. So that's what we want to experiment with and be somewhat familiar with those shapes and just to see them. So if I wanted to play, the sound of the major 7 chord down here in this position, then I know really quickly that that's the inversion for the major 7 there. If I want to play the major 7 up here, right? So you just kind of by experimenting, by moving those notes around and getting familiar with those shapes. The dominant 7. So those are all really great chord sounds, and just by seeing the tones inside of the chord, by understanding the way the triad is built, seeing the way the tones are arranged in each inversion, and then being able to move them and manipulate them. And so I think by understanding the chords this way, rather than trying to memorize shapes from just like looking at piles and piles of chord charts and this kind of thing, this is what's going to lead to a deeper grasp and understanding of chords, and you understand what's happening when you're making these choices, when you're choosing a certain type of chord, or you're having to quickly think of a different way to play a major 7 chord or dominant 7 chord, or a different type of sus chord, whatever it is that you're looking for. You know which tones to move, and because you've really thought about the structure of each inversion. And so it can be time consuming, but it's really worthwhile, and you're going to understand the instrument a lot better. You're going to be a whole lot better musician for it, for sure. We can also look at like chord changes, right? So if we're looking at a common chord change, if we're in the key of G, would just be going from the 1 to the 4 chord, which would be C. So G to C. Right, so if you were wanting to be a second guitar part, if your buddy was playing those 2 chords in the open position and you didn't want to copy them and just be playing the same thing, this is where it's really cool. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm just going to play a different position of that chord. I understand which chords you're playing. You're playing G and C. I know where to play other types of G and C. I can use this G right here, and then I can use this C right here. So then we can use, right, we're on the D string, 5th, 4th, and 3rd fret, so D string 5, G string 4, B string 3. So this is giving me the root position G, and then if I play D5, G5, B5, now I have a, what is this, a second inversion C chord. And so that's what you want to practice. So you want to know, if I'm playing this type of G triad, I want to know that if I'm looking for a 4 chord, it's right there, and that becomes instinctive, because that is such a common chord change, and that just practicing this would be really worth your while. So however you want to do that, whether you're barring it or you're playing it with individual fingers, you are very comfortable with that idea. Same thing if we're in the first inversion G, you would know that C is right there. We're using the same shape of the G that we used down here, but now we're doing it at the 10th, 9th, and 8th frets on the D, G, and B strings. First inversion G, root position C. So that's what that looks like. We're going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. G, C, G, C. Same thing up here. If we're going to use the second inversion G, it's a little tight, but I would play a first inversion C chord. So that's the third, or the interval of the 3rd, the 5th, and the root. So that's at D string 14th fret, G string 12, B string 13. And that's going to give you some different options. And so same thing, if I was playing the top 3 strings, you could figure this out. That's my G, that's my C, G, C, G, C. So that's a really, really great thing to practice. practice. Even with just a simple 1 to 4 chord change, it'll be super beneficial to know that. And then obviously the next most important chord to learn would be the 5th chord. So if we're going G to C, knowing where to find D. So we have G, C, D will look like that. So this is the first inversion shape. We're playing it at the, so then that's our D, that's the root, that's the 5th, that's the 3rd. So that's at the D string 4, G string 2, B string 3, root chord, or 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord. Go to the, our G at the first inversion, root, 4, and then we're looking for D. It's going to look like this, D string 7th fret, G string 7th fret, B string 7th fret. So this is like a second inversion D. Back to first inversion G. Root position C, second inversion D, root position G. Or sorry, first inversion G. Then over here, we're going to run out of space, but second inversion G, first inversion C, root position D, so that's the D string 12, G string 11, B string 10, back to G. So this is a great thing to practice. You want to do them on all sets of, triple sets of strings. G, B, high E string, D, G, B string, A, D, G, and E, A, D. So a really great thing to practice, just knowing your 1 to 4 or 1, 4, 5 chord changes. And then you can challenge yourself to do like, to do it with minors. So do that same 1, 4, 5, but all minor triads. And so this is something you want to think about. You want to sit with it and work through it and not kind of, okay, well, show me all the minor triads. Now show me all these triads. The more that you can grasp the concept and then work through it, to be like, okay, well, I should do it with the minor triads. So how do I make this minor? I have to flatten the 3rd. Yeah. Okay, then if this is my C major, where's the 3rd? Oh, the 3rd is on the B string here. Okay, I have to flatten that. That's the minor shape. Okay, so it would look like this if I was doing the minor. Same thing if I'm gonna, okay, this is my 5 chord. Where's the 3rd? The 3rd is on the D string. That's the 5th. That's the root. So I need to flatten that note. So that's it. So there's my root position minor, second inversion minor, first inversion minor, root position minor again. So that's what you want to do through each of them. Think about it. Think about where the components are. Where's the 3rd? Where's the 5th? Where's the root? Which note do you need to move to make it minor? Rather than just thinking them as shapes, actually understand the chords a little bit. And so that's going to be really, really helpful and really great way to obviously start playing chords in different parts of the fretboard. Really great way when you're jamming with other people, when you're playing with other guitar players. If they're playing just kind of the basic campfire chords, then you're gonna, if you know this stuff really well, then you're gonna be able to find these different chord inversions by knowing your triads like this, and you can play so many more chord shapes, and your chord vocabulary is expanded so much more by doing this. So that's really, really good. And then eventually it even is going to help inform your soloing. And so when you're playing over some difficult chord changes, you're going to be able to make really smart choices in terms of your phrasing and your melodies that you're improvising with as well. So rather than just using a scale the whole way, like pentatonic scale or something, you can actually kind of think about your melodic choices a bit more by using these triads to help you navigate. So explore these concepts, give these triads a try and try to understand them a little bit. And yeah, hopefully the next video that I do on triads will step it up a notch and then move it into some lead ideas and how we can expand this into an improvisational soloing context, and that'll be really fun. So thanks so much, guys. Hopefully this was helpful and we learned something about music and guitar playing. We've pushed ourselves forward a little bit. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Cheers.